I am making an updated Yubel deck profile for the new ban list after testing it at my locals on, when was that? I think it was the December 20th. I ended up getting third place. I lost round one, but then I proceeded to then win against Traptrix Ryzeal, and then I also won against what did I win against that game? Round three. I gotta try. I won against Shining Sarcophagus Dark Magician. That was something else I won against. But overall, I really like how this deck performed, and having one Phantom Yubel isn't that bad since Nightmare Throne can actually just recycle it. But anyway, starting off with the monsters, I play 3 copies of Gruesome Grave Squirmer. Gruesome Grave Squirmer is a free body while you control a fiend that activates in hand to summon itself, and then you have the option of destroying a fiend monster you control. So, sometimes I'll use it to destroy a Yubel monster I have on the field, but most of the time I'll just leave it on the field so I can use it for link material. And then it also has the effect in the graveyard where you can banish it to then special summon a 0/0 fiend from your hand. So you can also use it to summon a copy of Yubel that's stuck in your hand. Then next, I play 3 copies of Samsara D Lotus. Samsara D Lotus has 3 effects. The first one lets you tribute it for cost to then be able to special summon a Yubel monster from your hand or deck. And then its second effect is when your opponent activates a monster effect, then you contribute it to then change that monster's effect to destroy a Yubel monster your opponent controls. And its last effect is during the end phase if you control Yubel. Unfortunately, since it doesn't stay Yubel monster, it does have to be the original Yubel. Then you can special summon it from your graveyard. Or you can either special summon it from your graveyard to your field or add it back to your hand, but most of the time I just special summon it back from the graveyard. And then you can only use each effect of Samsara D Lotus once per turn. Same with the Gruesome Grave Squirmer. And then next, I play 3 copies of Dark Beckoning Beast. Dark Beckoning Beast has the effect that when it's normal summoned, you add Opening the Spirit Gates. Ordinarily, it lets you add a card that mentions a Sacred Beast outside of Dark Beckoning Beast. But since Opening the Spirit Gates is the only card in the deck you can add, you just add that. Although I am currently working on making a Sacred Beast Yubel deck, which is less a focus on Yubel and more of a focus on the Sacred Beasts, but it's a work in progress at the moment. And then the other thing with this card is, while it's on the field, then once per turn you get 1 additional normal summon of a 0/0 fiend. So you can normal summon this, grab Opening, activate Opening the Spirit Gates, grab another Dark Beckoning, and then if you have nothing else you can normal summon, you can just go ahead and normal summon the second Dark Beckoning, and then start link climbing into SP Little Knight. Or you can normal this, get Opening the Spirit Gates, and then you can normal summon something like Samsara D Lotus and start doing Yubel shenanigans. Speaking of, next I play 3 copies of Spirit of Yubel. Spirit of Yubel can be special summoned from your hand whenever your opponent's monster declares an attack. And then the rest of its effects are once per turn effects, where it can't be destroyed or not. It can't be destroyed in battle, and you take no battle damage from battles involving it. But I forgot about that part when I said the rest of the effects are once per turn. But whenever Spirit of Yubel is special, normal, or special summoned, you can then add a spell or trap from your deck to your hand that mentions Yubel. Unfortunately, because it has to actually mention Yubel, the best card in the deck cannot be added off of this effect, because it has to say Yubel and not Yubel monster. But you can take a spell or trap that mentions Yubel and either add it to your hand or set it to your field, so it does let you continue to play through cards like Droll and Lockburn, to some extent at least. And then its last effect is if it's destroyed, then you can special summon a Yubel from your hand, deck, hand, deck, grave, or banish? Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. You can use your falling effects spirit your Yubel will return. Oh. And then I realized I actually played myself in the matchup against Traptrix Ryziel because for some reason I thought Yubel's effect to summon another Yubel from Banish, Hand, Deck, or Grave was a once per turn effect when that effect is not. The only once per turn of it is its effect to add a spell or trap from your deck to your hand or set that mentions Yubel. I apologize because it'd been a while since I last played this deck, so not as memorized on their effects as I should be. Then next, I play 3 copies of Yubel. Yubel has the effect where it can't be destroyed by battle. You take no battle damage from battles involving this card. And then, if this attack efficient monster is targeted for an attack, then your opponent takes damage equal to their attacking monster's attack. And then if Yubel is destroyed, then you can special summon 1 Yubel Terror Incarnate from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And then next, I play 2 copies of Yubel Terror Incarnate. Terror Incarnate does the exact same thing as Yubel, just rather than... That's right, one other thing I forgot to mention is Yubel has the end phase effect that you must tribute 1 other monster on your field or else Yubel will self-destruct. And Yubel's effect is a float in a Terror Incarnate, only triggers if it's destroyed by another, or a different card's effect, and not its own effect. And then, like I said, Terror Incarnate does the same thing as Yubel, but rather than having to tribute a monster during the end phase, Terror Incarnate just dark holes the board, except for itself. And then when it's destroyed, then you can special summon a copy of Yubel, the Ultimate Nightmare, from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which I play 1 of. The Ultimate Nightmare does the exact same thing as Yubel and Terror Incarnate, but rather than only being able to inflict damage when an opponent's monster attacks it, Ultimate Nightmare has the effect that at the end of the damage step, or is it end or start of the damage step? I can never remember. At the end of the damage step, if it battled, it inflicts damage to your opponent equal to the attack points of the opponent's monster, and then it can destroy that monster. The only downside is that Ultimate Nightmare doesn't have any kind of protections effects, which is understandable because at the time it was printed, the Ultimate Nightmare would have been a very broken card. But now I get to the little engine that I'm playing in the deck to make up for not having Unchained and Fiendsmith for it. So instead, I'm playing the Horus cards. So I play 1 Happy, 1 Duamatef, and 1 Kabasenuef. They each have the effects that if you control King Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. And then they each have their own unique effects depending on, or if a card leaves your field. And then Duamatef also has the effect where it gains 1200 attack for each Horus monster you control. And their effects when a card leaves your field are Kabasenuef just makes it so your Horus monsters can't be destroyed by card effects. Okay. I'm just going to target Horus monsters for attacks. Okay. It just makes it so that your Horus monsters can't be targeted by card effects or attacks for the rest of the turn. There's a reason Kabasenuef is considered the worst of them all. Happy lets you target 2 cards that are banished or in your graveyard, add them to your hand, or add them to the owner's hand. And then Duamatef lets you draw 1 card for each different monster in your main monster zone, and then I think it's discard. If you know, you just draw 1 card equal to the number of monsters with different names in your main monster zone. And then to finish off the Horus monsters, I also play 3 copies of Imseti. Imseti has the effect where you can discard it and another card to then add a copy of King Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand. And then its other or you get to add a copy of King's Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand, and then you get to draw a card. And then Imseti's other effect is when another card in your field is destroyed, it just lets you send one card on the field to the grave. So I really like that effect because it's a non-targeting sending, which this and SP Little Knight are this deck's answer to Shining Sarcophagus. Since they don't actually destroy, the Shining Sarcophagus is not immune to their effects. I don't know why, but I'm just constantly afraid of the Shining Sarcophagus deck, even though I really shouldn't be. Moving on to the spells. For the only one-up spell in the deck I play is one copy of Called by the Grave. This actually really helped me. This actually really helped in one of my games because I had added a card, or I used Imseti's effect, and then my opponent went to use Drone Lockbird, but I had Called by, so I was able to make a horus board as well as a horus, two rank 8s on top of a Yubel end board. Blech, I apologize, my mouth just is not wanting to work with my brain. Anyway, next I play 3 copies of Nightmare Pain. Nightmare Pain has the effect that during your main phase, you can destroy a dark monster on your field or in your hand, or it has to be face up on your field or in your hand, to then add a card that mentions Yubel from your deck to your hand. And then, while it's on the field, all your monsters that can attack must attack a Yubel monster you control. And then your opponent takes any battle damage from battles you would have taken involving a Yubel monster. So with this in play, if your opponent has a Blue Eyes White Dragon and they attack Yubel, this card will make it so that they'll take 3,000 points of battle damage, and then they'll take 3,000 points of effect damage because they attacked Yubel. And I'm only playing the Horus cards in this deck because there's been quite a few games where I've just been denied Nightmare Pain's existence. And then next, I play 3 copies of Nightmare Throne. Nightmare Throne is the Ayatamias for the Yubel deck, as since Nightmare Throne doesn't specifically mention Yubel and just Yubel monster, it cannot be searched off of Spirit of Yubel, as sad as that is. One thing I was thinking of, though, is if I take out the horror stuff, that gives me room for 9 more cards, which I was thinking would be 6 hand traps and then 3 one-off support spells, or like 2 thrust and a terraforming just to get to Throne easier. But when Throne is activated, you get to take a 0/0 Fiend. When I say 0/0, I mean 0 attack and 0 defense. Fiend from your deck, and either add it to your hand or destroy it. And then if a Yubel monster you control is destroyed, then you can activate Nightmare Throne's effect to add a Yubel monster that is 1 level higher or lower from your deck or graveyard to your hand, and then you can special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. Which usually what I'll do with this is if Yubel is destroyed, then I'll chain 1 Yubel, chain 2 Nightmare Throne, to then be able to add a Terror Incarnate from deck to hand, summon Terror Incarnate, and then Yubel summons a second Terror Incarnate. And then next, I play 3 copies of Opening of the Spirit Gates. Opening of the Spirit Gates just lets you add Dark Beckoning Beast when it's activated. The one thing I will mention, though, is that when it's activated, you do have to add a card. So if you don't have a Dark Beckoning Beast in your deck, then you can't activate it. But once per turn, you can discard a card to summon a 0/0 Fiend from your graveyard. Which originally, when this card was made, it was meant to do something like discard Dark Summoning Beast and then bring back Dark Summoning Beast. But now you can also use it with Yubel monsters. And then its last effect is if you control a level 10 monster, you can then activate its effect to then return a continuous spell in your graveyard to your hand. So this also lets you recycle your Nightmare Pains. And lastly, for the deck, or for the spells, not deck, the spells, I play 3 copies of King's Sarcophagus. King's Sarcophagus has the effect that up to 4 times per turn, you can discard a card to send a horus monster from your deck to the graveyard. And then, while you control this card, your horus monsters are unaffected by your opponent's card effects unless they specifically target them. And then its last effect is at the start of the damage step. If one of your horus monsters battles a monster your opponent controls, once per turn, you can then send that opposing monster to the graveyard. And that is it for these spells. Moving on to the 3 traps. For the traps, I just play 3 copies of Eternal Favorite. I really like Eternal Favorite just because both its effects are once per turn effects, and it's not. You can only use one of the 2 per turn and only once that turn. So if you have 2 copies of Eternal Favorite, then you can just use them both in the same turn. Where its first effect lets you summon a Yubel monster that is banished on your graveyard. And then its second effect lets you send a card from your hand to the graveyard along with this card you control for cost to then fuse monsters on the field as long as you're using a Yubel monster. Or not a Yubel monster, as long as you're using a copy of Yubel. So it can't be Spirit of Yubel, Terror Incarnate, Ultimate Nightmare. It has to be the actual Yubel. Which that's its only downside. And then that's it for the main deck. Currently it is a 40 card deck. One thing I have thought about is making it 42 by taking out the Called by the Grave and just adding 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Just so I can more easily fuse with my opponent's monsters. And then moving on to the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Salamangreat Almirage. Almirage is in here just for if the Dark Beckoning Beast gets Veilered or Impermed. Because then you can just link off into this. Or, Veilered or Impermed. I apologize, that's the wrong thing. This is in here if you have a Yubel monster in your hand, but you have no way of actually being able to summon it. As you can normal summon Dark Beckoning Beast, grab Opening, activate Opening, add another Dark Beckoning. And then if you have nothing else you can normal summon, you can use your second normal summon on the Dark Beckoning, summon this card, and then you can link off it and the other Dark Beckoning for either Barricade Board Blocker or SP Little Knight. And then because you have a 0 attack and defense fiend in your graveyard, you can then discard the Yubel monster with opening of Spirit Gates and then bring it back to your field. But Barricade Board Blocker has the effect that while you control it, your face-up spell cards cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects. And then when summoned, you can discard a card so that during the end phase, you can add a continuous or field spell from your graveyard to your hand. And then SP Little Knight has 2 effects, where if it's link summoned using a monster summoned from the extra deck, I should probably actually read how that effect is worded, because it may not include pendulum monsters. Okay, no, if it's link summoned using a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link. I just had that thought and realized that may not be entirely true statement. But if you link summon it using a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster, then you can target 1 card on the field or in the graveyard and banish it. And then it has another effect where you can, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can target 2 monsters on the field with at least 1 being a monster you control to banish both until the end phase. And you can only use each effect of SP Little Knight once per turn. For the rank 8s, I play 1 copy of number 90 Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. Photon Lord is just a monster negate. That's pretty much it. He has more effects, but since I don't play Photon or Galaxy in this deck, he doesn't really do anything else. Though, in my side deck, I do have Galaxy Cyclones, where you can, during your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can take a Photon or Galaxy card from your deck and either add it to your hand or attach it as material. Every once in a while, I'll just go ahead and attach a Galaxy Cyclone to it, which I think is hilarious. And then next, I play 1 copy of Dingirsu. Dingirsu has the effect that when it's summoned, you can activate 1 of 2 effects, where you can take a card that's banished and then attach it as material, or take one of your cards that's banished, attach it as material, or you can just send 1 card on the field on your opponent's side of the field to the graveyard. And it also has an effect where if a card or cards on your field be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach a material instead. Then I play 1 copy of Coach King Giant Trainer. Giant Trainer has an effect where you can use its effect up to 3 times per turn, but if you use its effect, you can't conduct your battle phase that turn. But it lets you detach a material, draw 1 card, reveal it, and then if it was a monster, your opponent takes 800 points of damage. I actually used this against someone in time, and I drew 3 monsters off of it, so I ended up dealing 2,400 points of damage. I felt really bad about that. The time rules really should go back to being both players get 2 turns, and whoever has more life points at the end of the 4th turn wins. That's how it should go back to. The current time rules are very annoying, as I usually get paired against people that will slow play until time is called and then flip all their burn cards and then offer handshake like they did something actually respectable. But anyway, next I play 1 copy of number 38, Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. Hope Harbinger has 3 effects, but only 2 of them actually matter. The first one is your opponent activates a spell or the effect of a spell. You can then negate it and then attach that card to the Hope Harbinger as material. And then when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can activate Hope Harbinger's effect, detaching a material to then redeclare the attack on itself. So if you have a SP Little Knight on the field and your opponent just goes to try to run it over, then you can use Hope Harbinger to redirect the attack to itself. And its last effect is if an Xyz monster you control leaves the field, then you can target one other Xyz or one Xyz monster you control and gains attack equal to that monster's attack. But that effect, I've never seen anyone ever use that effect. So then I play 1 copy of number 1 Infection Buzz King. Buzz King has the effect that when it's Xyz summoned, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and send 1 card from their extra deck to the graveyard. And then during your standby phase, Buzz King lets you take 1 card from your opponent's graveyard as material. Now its last effect is once per turn, you can detach a material, target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it, and then if it's a monster, they take damage equal to half its attack points on the field. Which, one of my friends actually had a game where the opponent had like a 28,000 attack Psychic End Punisher. No, it wasn't 28,000. It wasn't 28,000, but it was big. But he was able to attack into it and have just enough life points left to not be destroyed by the Psychic End Punisher, but instead have lower life points. Where he then made Infection Buzz King and had Buzz King destroy the Psychic End Punisher and then wiped out the rest of his opponent's life points, which I think that was hilarious, and that's part of the reason why Buzz King is one of my favorite number monsters. Then moving on to the rank 10s, I play 1 copy of Varudris, the final bringer of the end times. Varudris has the effect where if opponent activates a card or effect, you can detach material to negate that card, and then you can negate that effect, and then you can detach 1 more material to then be able to destroy that card. And then if Varudris attacks while it has a material, then you can activate its effect on the attack declaration to then destroy 1 card on the field. And if Varudris is destroyed while it has material, then you can destroy 1 card on the field. And you can only use each effect of Varudris, the final bringer of the end times, once per turn. And then next, just to be funny, I play 1 copy of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, and 1 copy of Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe. Or is it Libe? I don't remember. But anyway, Gustav Max just has the effect where you can detach a material, inflict 2,000 points of damage. And then Juggernaut Libe has the effect that you can Xyz summon it by using a rank 10 Earth Machine Xyz you control, such as Juggernaut Gustav Max. And then you can detach a material so that it permanently gains 2,000 attack points, and then it can attack. But however, if you use that effect, Libe is the only one allowed to attack, and then it can attack monsters or make a number of attacks on monsters your opponent controls. For each material it has +1. So if it has 3 materials, it can make up to 4 attacks on monsters. If it has 1, it can make 2 attacks on monsters. Which Ordinarily, I don't summon this unless my opponent has nothing and they're still at full life points. So I summon Gustav Max, inflict 2,000 damage. Summon Liebe. Liebe then lets you use a material, make its attack 6,000. Now it can attack directly for exact damage. Which, ironically, one person I was playing against just got fed up and just normal summon a Droll and Lockbird in attack mode and passed. And I just did this. And then next, I play one copy of Phantom of Yubel. Phantom of Yubel has the effect that when your opponent activates a monster effect, then you contribute Phantom of Yubel to then change that monster's effect to your opponent destroys one Yubel monster they control or in their deck or hand. And then you can special summon Phantom Yubel by using a Yubel monster plus a 0 attack and defense fiend by shuffling them back into your deck from your graveyard. Phantom Yubel cannot be used as fusion material. Which, I understand why Phantom Yubel has that effect, because if it didn't, then you would just be able to use 2 Phantom Yubels to make a third, and then you would never run out of Phantom Yubel. And you can only special summon Phantom Yubel once per turn. But like I said, this is a level 9 Yubel, so you can actually recycle it with the Nightmare Throne. And then lastly, I play 3 copies of Yubel, the Loving Defender Forever. Loving Defender has the effect that it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. You take no battle damage from battles involving it, and then it does a similar thing as the Ultimate Nightmare, where at the end of the damage step, if it battled, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack on the field, and then banish that monster. And then Loving Defender's final effect is when it is fusion summoned, it inflicts 500 points of damage to your opponent for each fusion material used for its summoning. Speaking of which, its fusion requirement is a Yubel monster plus 1 or more effect monsters. And that is it for my Horus Yubel deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, besides adding Unchained and Fiendsmith, because I don't have those, any ideas for decks like to see be made in the future, or decks like to see face each other, feel free to comment down below. I always read the comments. Thank you for watching.